Okay, here we go.
Move your chair over.
Thought you were going to be in the camera.
I will be. Tell everybody hello.
I don't want to tell anyone. Hi, everyone. I don't know who's here yet.
There's a couple of people.
A couple of people. Star Wars and C. Warnham. Welcome. Thank you for showing up. South Central Texas. Where's that? I grew up in Brownsville. Okay. I think we're ready. Today we're going to talk about All Saints Day. Cover All Saints and All Souls. The reason the Catholic Church has All Saints Day is because we recognize that there are many more saints in heaven than those that we recognize officially. So there are about well over 10,000 saints in the that are recognized or are known to, not known. We assume there are about well over 11,000 saints. Only about 1,600 are officially canonized by the most recent canonization process. But we don't really know how many there are. So on All Saints Day, we have a day set aside to just think about all the saints that are in heaven that we know or don't know about, and it's a day set aside just to remember them. Obviously, we don't need to have a special day to pray for them because they're in heaven and our prayers can't help them. And tomorrow is All Souls Day. Those are for, well, the saints in heaven die in a state of perfect grace, according to the Catholic Church, which means they go straight to heaven. And those who die in mortal sin go straight to hell. And most people have some amount of sin, and they go to purgatory. And so tomorrow's All Souls Day, where we pray for the souls, but today is All Saints Day. Why do Catholics pray to saints? The Catholics pray to saints basically for a couple readings, a couple Bible verses. Hebrews 11, chapter 11, verses 1 through 12. James chapter 5, verses 15 or verses 16 through 18, and Revelation chapter 5, verse 8, and chapter 8, verse 3 and 4. So Hebrews says, seeing we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, in other words, the heroes and martyrs from the faith in the past, let us run with perseverance, the race that is set before us. So we're saying we recognize there's people who've gone before us, and we should run in that direction. Search out saints, search out saintly people so that we can emulate their lives. James says the prayers of a good man has a powerful effect, and we know the saints in heaven were good men or women, and their holiness will help us to achieve holiness with them. And Revelation says, in heaven the elders and angels offer up prayers of the saints on earth as incense before the throne of God. So Revelation says specifically that the saints in heaven carry our prayers to God, and the Catholics believe that eminently. We don't ask the saints to fix us. We ask them to intercede and carry our prayers to God. I'd start out with
hey everybody. I'm here.
Start out with, hey, everybody. No, that was her. So I figured I'd start out with the saints that I pray to, because I pray to more than one saint for different things. But um, I want to just preface that with every saint has a certain need. If you have a need, you can go to saints, certain saints, specific saints for each need. You know, if you're a victim of abuse, there's 10 saints you can pray to for victims of abuse. Matthew, Saint Matthew, who wrote the first gospel, is the patron saint of accountants. Um, if you are a basket maker, there's Anthony the abbot, is the patron saint of basket makers. Andrew and Peter, you know, were fishermen, so guess what? They're the patron saints of fishermen. Neighborhood watch. It's a common thing nowadays, or at least it was a few years ago. Saint Sebastian. And Michael the Archangel alone has 30 patronage. There's 30 different things that you can pray to Michael the Archangel for. So with over, I have here 1,776 saints. There's a patronage for just about everything. My saints, the saints that I pray to, are Padre Pio, for when I have pains or aches or any sores at all. Saint Catherine of Alexandria. She's a very interesting saint. She was in the very early 4th century, but she is known for her courage and wisdom. I got a slide on her. Another saint I pray to is Saint Juan Diego. He was an American Indian, and he brought the image of Our Lady of Guadalupe. And of course, I pray to Mary for everyone else. For everything else, I pray to Mary.
My patron saint?
Oh, you can say your patron saint.
I am I am a Marian. In other words, I mostly pray to the Holy Mother, but I will also do novenas to Saint Teresa of the Little Flower, asking for intercessory prayer. She is my patron saint from when I was confirmed. Patron name is Therese. So that when we are confirmed, we pick a saint, somebody that we can recognize and understand. We feel called because their life impacts us in some way, and often pray to our patron saint for intercessory prayer. And then, of course, I always pray to Saint Michael frequently because I feel like we're in that period of our life, in our, I guess, historical time, where we need constant prayer against evil. So those are my 3 main ones.
So if we're going to talk about saints, you know we have to start with Mary, the Mother of God. Okay. The Proto-Evangelium of James is a book that was omitted from the New Testament, but he talks a lot about Mary's life. And we know that Mary was prophesied in the Old Testament, especially
Genesis.
in Genesis, in the book of Genesis.
Chapter 3,
verse
15.
15.
Not that I memorized it.
Okay. Put enmity between you and the woman. Okay. And then she was the mother of Jesus, but always a virgin, still is a virgin. She witnessed her son's execution in humility and pain. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want to watch my kids die.
It also fulfills Simeon.
And Simeon in the book of Luke, at the beginning, when they bring Jesus to the temple, Simeon says, your heart will be pierced by a sword.
In other words, very strong. She will have very strong pain. And it goes on to say, so that the souls of many, so that, in other words, she would understand and recognize the pain for the souls of many. So praying for her intercession, she has a unique perspective because of the pain she experienced watching her son go through such a gruesome death.
Yeah, and speaking of a gruesome death, excruciating pain, the word excruciating comes from the Latin ex crucio, out of the cross.
Out of the cross.
Yeah, so the excruciating pain, the pain was so bad, first of all, if you were a Roman citizen, you couldn't be crucified. And second, they didn't record any real information about crucifixion. All we have is pretty much the Bible, but none of the historians wanted to record information about crucifixion because it was a very painful death and ugly
and embarrassing.
Okay, we know that Mary bilocated. That means she was two places at the same time. She bilocated to St. James in Zaragoza, Spain, on a pillar in about the year 40. St. James was trying to evangelize in Spain, and he felt dejected. He wasn't as successful as he wanted, and Mary appeared to him on a pillar. The pillar is still in Zaragoza. There's a basilica right there,
built by Saint Helena, Constantine's mother.
Yeah. Let's see. St. James was, and so she told him that these people will do great things for my son. And Guadalupe, that's a whole nother slide. So, okay. She was assumed into heaven. The Catholic Church doesn't say that she died or she just fell asleep and went to heaven. All they say is when her life was on earth was completed, she went into heaven.
The Eastern Orthodox they call it the big sleep.
The big dormition, yeah, the dormition, okay. She is the queen of heaven and earth. She was crowned queen of heaven and earth. Just as when Solomon became king, his mother became the Queen Mother.
We went through that last time.
Yeah, we go through it. Okay. She has appeared countless times throughout the ages, all around the world. And that's in a whole nother, that's in the apparition slide deck. She always points her children, always points us to her son.
My favorite story in the Bible, wedding at Cana.
The wedding at Cana, where she starts. Listen to him.
Listen.
Do what he tells you.
He took the servants to her son, told them their issue, and then turns around and says to the servants, listen to him, and he leaves. Her role is to bring us to the heart of her son.
Yeah, she ascended into heaven about the year 47 from my calculations, what I can figure out. Most of the places say we don't know when she was assumed, but thinking how old she was when Christ was born and other things, I calculated to about the year 47. Her body, she died or she went into heaven, she was assumed. Well, either way, two different towns claim to be her last resting place: Jerusalem and Ephesus, Turkey. Each one has a claim to it. So that's that. Okay, in 451 AD, this is an interesting story. During the Council of Chalced, Emperor Marcian asked the Patriarch of Jerusalem for relics of Mary, so they could bring them to Constantinople for enshrinement. He wanted some artifacts, some relics of Mary, and the Patriarch said, we don't have any. There's no body. Mary was assumed. And the tomb was found empty after her death, is what he said. So that's the quote. He says she was laid in a tomb, and when they opened it up later, empty. If we talk about Mary, we have to talk about St. Joseph. His feast day is March 19th. He is the patron of the Universal Church, unborn children, fathers, workers, travelers, immigrants, and a happy death, and woodworkers. Okay. The internet wasn't real good back then, so there's not a lot of information, but we have some stuff today. There was a chaplet of Our Lady of Light, or a Lady of for the Sisters of Loretto in 1852. They had a chapel built. And the sisters arrived from Kentucky, and they got to the chapel just as it was being finished. And they immediately recognized that the choir loft didn't have a way to get to it. Or the nave on the second floor, choir loft, didn't have a way to get to it. And they realized they couldn't build a regular staircase because there just wasn't room. It's a very small chapel. They'd have to tear out a whole bunch of things. And so the sisters prayed a novena to St. Joseph. Shortly thereafter, a man appeared at the chapel, said he could build the staircase, the stairway, but he wanted to be granted total privacy. In other words, they couldn't watch him build. They couldn't come in and go out. He just wanted to be in there alone. And so he locked himself in the chapel for 3 months with a saw, a square, and a few other simple tools. And as soon as he was finished, he disappeared, never asked for payment. And they had this beautiful staircase in this chapel. It's still there to this day.
Has no support.
Has no support. You can see a picture of it there. It's just a spiral staircase that goes up, but has no side supports to hold it together. Now, at the same time we have Mary, we have the 12 apostles. I have 12 here because I've added Matthias, who is added in Acts after Judas hung himself. So Peter taught in Palestine and in Rome, and he was crucified in Rome. Paul taught the Gentiles in Greece and Asia and the Eastern Mediterranean, but he was beheaded in Rome. James, as I said earlier, taught in Spain, or Hispania. It wasn't Spain back then. He was beheaded in Jerusalem. Actually, Mary on the pillar said, okay, they're going to do great things. We need you back in Jerusalem to be martyred.
She said, build me a chapel here.
Yeah.
And then be back in Jerusalem within the year. And as a matter of fact, he came back, and his martyrdom, what got Peter out of prison.
Yeah. Andrew was taught in Asia, and he was crucified in Asia. You know, the Andrew's cross. He was crucified on an X-type cross. James the Lesser taught in Palestine and in Rome, and he was stoned to death. Matthew taught in Ethiopia, and he also was stoned to death. Some sources say that he was stabbed to death. John taught in Palestine and Asia, died of natural causes in Ephesus, Turkey. Philip taught in Asia. He was crucified in Hierapolis, which is not far from Ephesus in Turkey. Bartholomew taught in Armenia, Asia, and he was flailed alive. Yeah, skinned alive. Thomas taught in India, but he was died with several spears through his body. Simon taught in Persia, and he was crucified in Edessa. Jude taught in Persia, and he was clubbed to death. And Matthias, the new apostle, taught in Syria, and he was burnt alive in Syria.
Makes the only apostle not have been martyred.
John.
Which we kind of needed him. He wrote Revelations at the end of his life.
Okay. This
is fun.
This is a great video.
Sound okay?
Yeah,
Can you hear this okay?
No. Roll up.
Hi.
Going to steal his body. Okay, I'm tracking you. What's next? We're going to tell the whole world
Not playing.
that he rose from You know what?
Classic, then what?
And then we're all going to get brutally murdered.
It's not playing.
Yeah, I know.
Real
Do
quick.
this.
So what? We get murdered. What's the problem?
I like it. I like it. I mean, don't get me wrong, Pete. I love me a good hoax as much as the next guy, right? Right? What's in it for us? Do we all get riches, fame, and fortune first, right?
No, get this. You're going to be hated, persecuted, and reviled for the rest of your life.
Okay, guys. Okay, fellas. Look, I gotta be missing something here, right? Okay? I mean, why on earth would we do this? Can we start over?
Oh, okay. We'll start from the beginning. Everybody for John,
Yeah.
the beloved disciple.
So, okay. We go down to Jesus' tomb.
Sounds good.
This is really easy.
Then we pay off the Roman soldiers that are guarding the tomb with their lives.
Why would they do that?
Then we somehow roll away the big stone that's in front of the tomb,
Obviously, you have to move the rock first. Duh.
and then we steal his body.
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
Then we tell the whole world that he rose from the dead, and we get brutally murdered for our troubles.
Epic prank, bro.
Peter, you rock. Oh, okay, guys. Okay, and then what?
Then we all get killed. Come on.
When do we see ourselves become exalted and praised?
That's just it. You don't!
What is happening? Anyone hear what I'm saying? This is the most idiotic plan of all time.
Chill out, bro. I mean, do I really have to explain the joke to you? Look, it's that we lie about Jesus' resurrection, and then we all die.
How am I supposed to chill out when our heads are getting cut off? Or worse, what is wrong with you guys? Thomas! Okay, look, back me up here. I know you can't be cool with all this. I know you gotta have some doubts. Come on.
Doubts?
I'll never have any doubts again!
Okay, you guys have officially lost it, okay? I am out of here. I'd rather be exiled to a deserted island than spend another minute with you wackos.
Have I got some good news for you?
Go ahead. Let them know.
Yeah, I'm doing that. Anyway, that was the Babylon Bee.
Great video.
Great, a lot of fun. Okay, so we talked about Mary. We probably should talk about her parents, Saints Joachim, or
Joachim.
Joachim, yeah, and Anne. They happen to be the patron saint of godparents and childless couples. And their feast day is July 26th. Devotion to St. Anne in particular has been prominent in places like France and Canada, where her relics were reportedly taken centuries ago. So we have the relics of St. Anne that, as we said several times, Catholics venerate relics, and they help us concentrate on the saint that we're praying to.
Could have put in a slide about why.
Yeah.
Biblical.
Biblically,
So
yeah.
just a quick venerating relics is a biblical
It's very biblical. Yeah.
practice. For example, a handkerchief from one of the disciples would be
John,
touched.
Yeah, Paul.
Paul, and would be touched, and they would take it to an infirm person. That person would be healed. Another one, it was John, wasn't it, where his shadow?
Peter.
Oh, was it Peter himself?
Yep.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
But Peter's shadow would heal people. So the whole idea of venerating relics is not as foreign as it sounds. There is
And-
quite a bit of biblical context behind that.
And even remember the woman who touched Jesus's cloak? She
Right.
didn't touch Jesus. She didn't ask him for anything.
Touched the hem of his
She
cloak,
touched a relic, a first-class relic,
which we
or
talked about
second-class
last
relic.
time.
Yeah. Okay. So then we go to one of Feisty's favorite saints.
Yeah.
But although Mariana de Jesus Torres is not a saint, she's only venerable. She wanted a very quiet life. She didn't want to have a lot of notoriety. And Our Lady says, "Oh, you won't have anything. Most of this won't come out until the 20th century." You're safe. He was born in 1563 and died in 1635.
Interestingly, until about the year 98, 99, maybe 2000, you could not find information on the internet about these apparitions. Our Lady of the Good Success or Great Event.
Yeah, that'll be the next slide.
You couldn't find anything.
Okay. Then Our Lady of the Great Event or Good Success. The word in Spanish is Bueno Succesa, which actually means the great event, not good success. But it translated, they just got lazy in the translation, called her Our Lady of Good Success. The good success refers to the triumph of the Immaculate Heart of Mary. And she actually told Mother Mariana, okay, get a ruler, and I want you to make a life-size statue of me. And she stood very still. And Mother Mariana took all the measurements to make so that she could make a statue. Mary foretold of a dark night for the church with heresy and a decay of faith and a decay of doctrine and priestly religious vocations. Mother Mariana died more than once. She came back to life and then told everybody about the horrors that she had been able to witness.
An interesting story. Did you have that? I didn't see
No, go ahead.
The painting of the statue, Mother Mariana and the artist went into town to try to find paint, try to paint the statue according to the vision that Mother Mariana had. And the artist felt very incapable of painting it exactly right. When they came back with the paints, the statue was painted and according to the apparitions, painted by the angels.
Okay, Our Lady of the Good Event also stands for the purification of the Virgin Mary and the presentation of Jesus in the temple. That's celebrated on February 2nd. Is the patron during times of crisis in faith, crisis in the church, and for a safe childbirth. Again, that's Mother Mariana, the birth and death of Mariana. And one thing that Our Lady of Good Event said is, woe to the children of the mid-19th century. There's one thing Feisty has always said. Mid-20th, I'm sorry.
Or latter part.
Latter part of the 20th century. One thing Feisty has said is, woe is not a good thing.
When it's used in the Bible, it's a very severely received word.
Yep, she predicted in the early 1600s that the church will be dominated by Freemasonry.
100 years before it happened.
100 years before it was created. There would be unprecedented sexual liberation. Wow, does that sound familiar? An attack on the sacrament of marriage. Yeah, they did that pretty well too.
Got rid of no fault.
They got rid of no fault.
They brought in
no fault divorce. Yeah. There's a large disregard for rules in religious orders. Widespread apostasy in the church. A lot of calamities. Mary made prophecies about the declaration of the dogma of the Immaculate Conception and the proclamation of papal infallibility.
The dogma of the Immaculate Conception wasn't officially dogma of the church. It was always understood from the inception of the church, but it wasn't officially dogma until 1854. So this is over 200 years before she talks about this. And also the apparitions for Fatima, for Japan, most of the apparitions, like Lourdes, actually are, they carry on from these apparitions, reminding the faithful that the church, which is us, will be going through great persecution in the latter part of the 20th century, which is what Fatima explicitly talks about in 1917. And of course, Kita Japan talks about it again, about this great apostasy in the church.
Yep. And the great event that is most important is, she said, a complete restoration of the Catholic Church is coming.
The gates of hell shall never prevail.
And speaking of heaven, I think we were speaking of heaven. Saint Michael the Archangel, he's very famous in history of and things that have happened, and his feast day is September 29th. He's the patron of grocers, I don't know why, but okay, soldiers, doctors, mariners, paratroopers, police, and sickness. And in the Old Testament, he's in 2 Maccabees, chapter 11, verse 8, they say, suddenly, while they were still near Jerusalem, they had been praying for help from God, a horseman appeared at their head, clothed with white garments and brandishing gold weapons. And then again in 2 Kings, I think it was Habakkuk. No, not Habakkuk. Yeah. Well, in 2 Kings, that night the angel of the Lord went forth and struck down 185,000 men of the Assyrian camp. They were surrounding Jerusalem and they were threatening to completely burn it down. And the king said, we need some help here. And the next morning they woke up and 180,000 of the men, 85,000 of the men were dead.
So when we get to the Q posts, we're talking about the post, I think, what is it? Can't remember the number of the post, but in the Q post on November 5th, 2017, we get the infamous St. Michael prayer. And when you see here, with St. Michael being the avenger, God's avenger, both in the garden and moving forward through history, what you recognize, even though we got the prayer, it was really talking about John Durham, whose nickname was the avenging angel who took on the FBI. You see the connection between the two. In other words, it's going to be biblical, and God is using men on earth to do some tough work. So keep them in your prayers.
And the St. Michael prayer is actually asking Michael.
Asking God to give Michael.
Well, that's what I was saying. Asking Michael through God to give us protection.
Finish the job, please.
Yeah. Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and the snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly hosts, by the divine power of God, cast into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl about the world seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. This is translated from the original German, I think, maybe Italian, as it came from Rome.
Pope Leo the 13th.
Pope Leo the 13th. So, this one says roam around the world. I've always learned it as prowl about the world. I like the idea of prowling more than roaming. And there's what they call them St. Michael's Line. It's a series of churches and abbeys and monuments dedicated to St. Michael. And the line starts in in Ireland, goes across the southern tip of England to Mont Saint Michel in France, in Normandy, France. From there, it goes to the southern corner of France. Name of the one in the southern corner. Normandy.
Val de Sou.
Yeah.
Val de Sousa.
Yeah, something like that. And from there, it goes through Italy. Whoops, goes through Italy. Then over to Greece and down to the coast of.
It's in Jerusalem, the Carmelite monastery in Jerusalem.
Yeah, in Jerusalem. Well, that's the top center. Okay. Yeah. So they call it it's a straight line across the straight line from Ireland to Jerusalem. And if you look at the picture, you see a slight curve, but that's the curvature of the earth.
It was the priest,
the priest, yeah.
The ex-post.
He said, I sent the coordinates of the 7 Michael monasteries to a man who uses satellites to verify map accuracy. He reported back that the sites are not only in a straight line with variability of up to 15 miles or less, but that the line allows for curvature of the earth.
Think about it. Thousands of years, thousands of years, several earthquakes maybe could shift the line a little bit. That's pretty darn interesting considering that's today.
Yeah, and they did it without compasses and.
Right. So it obviously isn't man-made. What do you think?
Yeah. Okay. Pope Leo XIII gave us the exorcism prayer. The Saint Michael prayer is a simple exorcism. This is a prayer specifically to help drive out evil spirits. I'm not going to read the whole thing.
There's also an exorcism mass.
Yeah, there's an exorcism mass, and it was presented on the internet recently. I guess last month.
So just so everybody knows, the reason for this, those that are in my chat on Telegram know this story because I talk about it often. The reason for this is on October 13th, 1884, Pope Leo XIII was cleaning up. He had just finished celebrating the noon mass, so we're talking at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and he went into what is known as an ecstasy. The cardinals and priests that were there thought he had died, actually. And in that ecstasy, he hears a conversation between Satan and God. And in that conversation, Satan says that he will have the church. And of course, God says, you'll never have the church. Satan says, give me the time and the power, and I will have your church. God gave him a century to do that. That is why the 20th century, woe to the children of the latter part of the 20th century, and exactly 33 years to the day, to the hour later, we have the miracle of the sun at Fatima, which again talked about apostasy in the church because of Russia's evil ways. So that's another great set of apparitions to go through. But it's the spread of communism is what triggers this. And Sister Lucia was ordered by the Pope to write down the third secret. She gave it to the church about 1958 and said it must be opened by 1960. And they asked her why. And she said, because it'll be made understood. Well, what's interesting, most interesting, you not only have the Berlin Wall completed in 1959, but Operation Seat 12, a Russian program, a USSR program to unseat Pope Pius XII, was signed in 1960. So there's here we have foretelling of something that is, and Sister Lucia herself said she wasn't told that date, that it had to be by 1960. She had an intuition that, again, speaks heavily about the Holy Spirit impressing on our heart messages we need. I just think that's a fascinating
Yeah.
story.
Sister Lucia was the oldest of the children at Fatima. He was 12,
Mhm.
and she died fairly recently, I think in the late 90s. Here's one of my favorites, St. Juan Diego. Juan Diego's feast day is December 9th. He was an indigenous American Indian, born in 1474, died in 1548. He was actually an Aztec, or not an Aztec, but he was of a tribe of Aztecs.
Inca one.
No, he was, let's see, I got it on here somewhere, maybe on one of the other slides. Anyway, well, he converted to Catholicism in 1525, I think it was. And so in 1531, he was headed to church and study daily mass and study, and he was walking by a hill called Tepeyac, a mountain called Tepeyac. Tepeyac was a place where the Aztecs used to sacrifice living people for life, because they thought that this mountain was the temple on that mountain. Where they sacrificed people and they were assured a long life, or a longer life. So while he was going by the mountain, Mary came to him. She actually was there at 4 different visitations. This is the first one. And she said, "Go tell the bishop I want a chapel built here." And he went and told the bishop, and the bishop said, "Come back a year later." And the next day he went back and Mary saw him and she said, "What did the bishop say?" And the bishop said, she told him what the bishop said, and he said, "Go back again." And he said, "Oh no, I'm nobody. You got to send somebody with some real card carrying power." And she said, "No, I picked you on purpose. Go to the bishop." So he went back to the bishop, and the bishop said, "Okay, fine. Bring me some proof that it's Mary." And so she went back and told Mary the bishop wanted proof. Mary said, "Go pick some flowers." I'm shortening the story, by the way. Go pick the flowers in the top of the hill. Now this was in December the 12th, or December. Yeah, they picked the flowers on December the 12th, which was the winter, right? There's no flowers. There's no flowers in the winter on top of this mountain. But he said, okay, he went up and he saw a bunch of flowers. In the flowers were Castilian roses and a couple others. So he picked the flowers, brought them back to Mary, and she arranged them in his tilma, which is just a cloak. And he took them to the bishop, and when he dropped the flowers out of his tilma, the image of Mary appeared on the tilma. Tilmas generally last about 20 years. This tilma is still there with the image of Mary on it, almost 500 years later. And the first miracle on the tilma, because of the tilma, was when the Aztecs were celebrating. An Indian got hit by an arrow, a wandering arrow, a stray arrow.
They used to shoot them straight in the air in celebration.
Yeah, in celebration, just like guys today shoot guns in the air for celebration. They shot arrows in the air for celebration, and one came down and killed a guy, and they laid the tilma on the guy, and he came back to life.
Another thing to note, the Castilian roses is an important story because they're not indigenous to the Western Hemisphere. They're actually indigenous at the time, called the Iberian Peninsula. It was Spain. The bishop had sent a letter to the King and Queen of Spain saying, if we're going to have any success here with evangelization, we're going to need a miracle from heaven. And so the Castilian rose, even though the entire apparition spoke to the indigenous people of the region, the Castilian roses spoke directly to the bishop. It was absolute proof that that was the Mother of God.
Okay, I would like to take a break and thank Wilma for the $5.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Appreciate the support. Thank you so much.
Okay, the Tilma of Guadalupe. This is the picture on the Tilma. It's a lady with a blue robe and a copper, I guess, copper dress. There are many things on the tilma that spoke to the indigenous people of the Americas. Her hair down, straightened down, said that she was a virgin. The black belt around her waist said that she was pregnant. Right on her womb was a four-petaled flower. Oh, I can point to it.
The cursor. It was just there.
I don't know.
It's there. You have a red cursor.
Looking for my red cursor. Feisty tells me there's a red cursor.
Go down to that point. See the pen?
No, the mouse isn't going there.
I wonder what's going on.
Oh well, I can talk about it. I'll point at it with my finger. There's a four-petal flower on her womb that told the Aztecs, or the indigenous, the Nahuans and the other people, that that this in her womb was the Son of God. Quetzalcoatl. The fact that she's looking down is a submission. She's submitting herself to God, to Jesus. The brooch on her neck is with the reflection of the cross on it. The Aztecs, when they had idols, they had polished green stones so they could see their reflection in their reflection, or see a reflection of their offering to whomever that person was, or whoever that God was. So this lady was reflecting Jesus in her brooch. And Mary, in her hand, this is amazing. I didn't know this till I started looking at this. In her hand, she's holding a maraca. She's actually got her hands cupped around it. It's a little. She's shaking her hands. It's a maraca, and inside the maraca was a rattlesnake tail. And so she would shake it. It was just a rattle that she could dance with. And if you look, her knee is bent. She was dancing. And that was this during this time of year, the locals had a dance that they used to do for the winter solstice. And she is dancing on the moon god. That's an eclipsed moon underneath her feet.
Angels are holding it.
The angels are holding her, but the eclipsed moon was one of the Aztecs' biggest gods. Of course, their sun god was their most powerful god, and she's standing in front of the sun god. And then there's a slight thing here. She's standing in front of the sun, but you notice that the one side of her dress, or her dress, is lighter than the other side, indicating there's light coming from somewhere else. And of course, that would be Jesus.
Can I tell a story?
You can tell the story.
Okay, so one of the most fascinating things that when I was studying all of this is, and this picture doesn't show it, barely. If you look down on the left side under the cloud, you barely see a shape of a set of toes, in a shoe. One shoe is colored, the other shoe is plain. So remember in the Bible when Christ said, I didn't come to condemn the world, I came to fulfill the law, not condemn. This again is a sign of that she's coming to fulfill the law. What is it? And like he said, the new and everlasting covenant is what he came for, to die for our sins, and it's the process of bringing us to God. So again, she's here to fulfill her role to bring us to God. As a result of this, some 10 million people did convert. To Christianity within a few years.
Within 10 years, 8 to 12 million indigenous Americans converted to Catholicism. They were happening so fast and so many in a day, they couldn't keep up. They couldn't keep up. The thing about the tilma is there's a lot of.
Do you want the note?
Okay, now we get on to.
You stopped a sentence mid-sentence. Thing about the tilma, there's a lot of
There's a thing about the tilma.
You said
I know, I started to say that, didn't I?
there's a lot more symbolism than we've pointed out.
Oh yeah,
here.
there's a lot. That's it. I was going to point out there's symbolism. The stars. There's symbolism in everything. In her eyes, you can see the reflection of the people that were standing around Juan Diego when he dropped the flowers.
Which nobody could see until the 20th century
Yeah.
with the advent of technology, by the way.
Yeah.
Nobody noticed it until we had the technology to do a better scan. Also, the tilma is always, regardless of the ambient temperature, it always registers as 98.6 degrees. You know that temperature, right?
Yeah. And a few years back, not very many, but there was a light over her womb. Where the womb was, there was a glowing light shining from where her womb is. There's pictures of it on the internet. Okay, now we're going to get to actually into the other saints. Saint Carrie Tekakwitha. She's actually from New York State, around 1680. She died in 1680 on April 17th. Her feast day is July 14th. And she's the saint of environmental and ecology. She was also the first Native American to be, not to be called a saint, but to be called blessed. He was called blessed in, or beatified in 1980. She was born in 1656 to a Mohawk village, and her mother was Algonquin, and they were captured by the Mohawks, and her mother took a Mohawk chief as a husband. She took the name of from Saint Catherine of Siena. At age 19, she converted to Catholicism after taking a vow of chastity and to be married to only Jesus Christ. In 2006, a 5-year-old was healed when getting chewed up by flesh-eating disease. I don't know if you know much about flesh-eating disease, but it's very bad, very rapid. But a child praying to Kateri for help, Kateri for help, was healed. And wood from Kateri's grave is often used, was used for healing children from smallpox.
And tell our story.
Okay, you can tell our story.
So, as you guys know, I am Italian.
I'm not. That's scary.
Especially when you're meeting my Italian family. I walk in and I introduce him, and the glares were immediate because they saw this tall blonde with blue eyes and went, "He's not Italian." My aunt was funny. He threw food because you always have to eat when you go to an Italian home. She threw a plate of food on the table in front of him and said, "Here." My uncle died laughing. My grandfather was giggling, but he still had that glare because I was supposed to marry an Italian, not some. What was the word they used? I can't remember, but yeah, they just didn't think we would have a good relationship. So the very next day, they pile he and I into the car and take us to her shrine so we could repent.
St. Patrick. Of course, we all know his feast day is March 17th. He's the patron of Ireland and a couple other things. He was born in 387 and died in 461. He was born in Roman Britain. At about the age of 14, he was captured and sold into slavery. He was taken to Ireland and a slave for herding sheep, tending sheep. He escaped and returned to England, but in March 25th of 433, he returned to Ireland to convert the people there. He adopted the name of Patrick after he became a priest, which is derived from the word for father.
Patre.
Padre. Yeah. He used shamrocks to explain the Holy Trinity. He's told the Irish, okay, that's why the shamrock is so famous there right now. They said, look, this is the Holy Trinity. Each leaf has its own purpose. Okay. He raised 33 people from the dead. He provided food for starving sailors. He fasted for 40 days on a mountaintop while being attacked by a swarm of crows, harassed. And he founded monasteries, churches, and other schools across the country, across Ireland. St. Nicholas, there we all know St. Nicholas. We're getting that time of year too.
A lot of people try to claim that Halloween, Christmas, and Easter are pagan holidays. They are not. They are not. Repeat, they are not. They are very Christian. Pagans tended to enjoy, co-opting those days, but these are very Christian. As Saint Nicholas, the story of Saint Nicholas, and of course, the whole idea of Christmas.
Okay, he's the patron saint of children, sailors, merchants, bakers, and pawnbrokers. Excuse me. He was imprisoned and tortured under Diocletian when Diocletian was attacking Christians. He was present at the Council of Nicaea and was there to condemn Arianism. And is said he slapped Arius at the Council of Nicaea. That story seems to be very true. I saw it very much on the internet in a lot of places, but it seems to be very true.
Has to be true.
It has to be true. It's on the internet. Saint Nicholas would secretly throw bags of gold through windows into the shoes. Kids would leave their shoes by the fireplace to dry out overnight and warm up. He would throw gold into the shoes as a dowry for poor daughters, or poor families with the daughters. Because back then, if you were poor and you had girls, you couldn't. There was very little they could do but starve or sell their bodies. Really, he resurrected 3 children who had been murdered by a butcher. Kind of, yeah. And his relics were moved to a basilica in Bari, Italy, after being stolen by Italian merchants in 1087. So, again, relics being taken.
Do you know which council?
Council?
Yeah, there's several Nicene councils. Do you know which one?
It would be the first one, I think. The one in
325?
Yeah, 325.
Okay, so that's an interesting place for him to be in 325. The Council at Nicaea, one of the first things they did after Christianity became legal.
It wasn't 325 because Diocletian was torturing Christians. So it'd have to be an earlier council. This is a council of one of the earlier councils of Nicaea.
It's not Constantine.
It's not Constantine.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Onward and upward. Belay that last.
Yeah. Ratchet.
Saint Christopher.
Yeah. The poor maligned saint.
The poor maligned saint. The quick story behind that is Saint Christopher is a saint from the 3rd century, but there was no real proof that he ever existed. A lot of stories, a lot of people called him a saint, a lot of people understood him as a saint. And I think it was in the 70s, early 70s, the Catholic Church says, we're not sure
we don't think he's a saint.
We're going to kind of make him less prominent. And of course, Saint Christopher is a very popular saint. There was a big uproar,
especially with the military.
Especially with military travelers. Here he is. He's a patron saint of bachelors, transportation, traveling, storms, epilepsy, the garden, a holy death, and a toothache. Even a toothache does it.
There was such an outcry when they tried to remove him that they've sent it. It's kind of like the planet Pluto. They say, it's really not a planet. Everybody says, well, it is my planet, so now Pluto is still a planet. But kind of the same kind of story. Then you evolve in understanding, and the people were going, no, he is a saint. So he is still recognized as a saint, but because the people said something. is important.
He's listed as being a martyr. He's described as being a giant with a fearsome, even dog-like face. His original name was either Reprobus or was Reprobus the Giant. He carried, in this story, he carried a child across the river. He was out to find the most powerful and the wisest king that he could find. But one of his jobs was to help people cross this raging river. And so a child came up to him, wanted to go across the river. And as they were going across the river, the child was getting heavier and heavier. And he said, wow, you almost drowned me. You were like I was carrying the weight of the world. And he found out that the child was Christ, and he was carrying the weight of the world in carrying Christ. Okay. The king who ordered his execution was healed of blindness after touching his eyes to the bloodied eye of the saint. Now, I don't know why they would do that, but they did it. There's another relic. The king who had him killed had eye problems, and they touched the eye of Saint Christopher to this king, and he was able to see. Saint Rita is my mother's saint. Feast day is May 22nd. Patron of impossible cases, difficult marriage, and parenthood. My mother had 9 kids, so I think she qualified. He was born in 1381 and died in 1457. After her baptism, a swarm of bees flew into her mouth without harming her. At the age of 60, a single thorn from a crucifix pierced her forehead, leaving a wound that remained until she died. In the winter, as she was dying, she asked a relative to bring her a rose from the childhood garden. Okay, so there we go again. Winter, roses. This is an interesting thing. To his surprise, he found a single rose blooming on a frozen solid branch. Her body was discovered to be incorrupt after her death, a state of preservation that is still admired today in Sicily or Cassia, Italy. So incorrupt is where the body doesn't decay. There are several saints that are noted with this great gift. She was a wife, a mother, a widow, and a nun. She became a nun after her husband died.
My saint.
You want to do it? Saint Teresa of Lisieux. October 1st is her feast day. She's the patron saint of missionaries, although she never went on a mission. Aviators, florists, and illnesses. He was born in 1873 and died in 1897.
Actually, I take issue with what you have there.
Okay.
She's also the patron saint of people who were in prison. Remember, she was praying
she prayed for that person.
The souls of those in prison, that they would, especially those on death row, that they would convert. Okay.
She lost her mother to cancer when her mother was, when her mother
was 4.
I don't think so.
Backwards.
Okay, when she was 4, she lost her mother to cancer, breast cancer. It had a complete conversion on Christmas Day in 1886. She stopped being a little girl in 1886. Her father, Louis, called her his little queen. At 14, she asked Pope Leo the 13th.
You know who that is.
I think we've heard that name before.
Yeah.
For permission to join the Carmelites, and he said, not yet. But he did let her enter the Carmelite convent at 15. She developed spirituality known as the Little Way, which is the idea that you can be achieved by performing ordinary actions with extraordinary love for God. That's a very, very great thing. You don't have to do magnificent things, just do little things for God. She died of tuberculosis in 1897 at 24. She was also known as the Little Flower. On her deathbed, she promised to send a shower of roses from heaven to those who seek her for
Seeker intercession. That's a really badly written sentence.
Yeah, I saw that. She was named a doctor of the church.
Which, by the way, there's only four.
I think there's a couple more.
Four women that are
doctors,
doctors of the church.
Her autobiography, The Story of a Soul, was published posthumously.
Also a great video.
Yeah.
So what's really cool about this story is she's the youngest of 5 girls. All of the girls went into the convent. She joined them, obviously, much later. Their father died with no son-in-laws. They all became nuns. She was always seen as special by her mother and father, even when she was very little. And so her father always called her my queen, my little queen, because she stood out. Her bout with tuberculosis came on fairly quickly after becoming a nun, and she died within 3 years, and converted her entire convent because of it, because they thought she was just another wealthy child looking to become famous. Great thing that happened, though, on the night of her death. It was also winter, and outside her window a rose bush bloomed. So her prophecy, or what she said she was going to do, I will spend, after my death, I will spend my time in heaven doing good on earth by showering earth with roses, comes out of that. But again, a rose bush bloomed on the day of her death in the cold.
Like Feisty said, all of her sisters became nuns, and that's part of the driving force between her parents becoming saints, being declared saints.
All of their children became nuns.
Saint Teresa of Avila.
A lot of Teresas.
Yeah. Her feast day is October 15th. She's the patron of headache sufferers, Spanish Catholic writers. Probably a couple other things. Her birth was in March 28th, 1515, and October 4th she died of 1582. She and her brother ran away from home in an attempt to become captives of the Moors, the Islamists in Spain, so that she could be a martyr. She wrote The Interior Castle and The Way of Perfection, considered some of the greatest spiritual writings in history. In 1970, she was declared a doctor of the church. Maybe all you just have to do is have your name as Teresa.
No.
Okay.
So imagine running away from home for the strict purpose of becoming a martyr.
And they weren't very nice about
No.
making them martyrs.
No.
It wasn't an easy step.
Yeah, C.V. Varnum just noted that you always nice to me.
Yeah, I do.
I always call him Matthew. Yeah, everybody started to know him as such.
Yeah. Okay, once Teresa Avila, this thing says she was trying to get across the flooded river. I heard another story. She was on a horse, and she exclaimed, will you stop putting obstacles in my path? Complained to God, and God replied, don't complain. I always do this to my friends. And she replied, that explains why you don't have many, or you have so few. I always thought that was a cute story.
Yeah.
Oh, look, another Teresa. And we all know Mother Teresa of Calcutta. Her feast day is September 5th, the patron of World Youth Day. She was born in 1910, died in 1997. She was born, without a B, born Agnes Gonsha
Yeah, I can't pronounce it. She was born in Macedonia.
In Skopje, Macedonia. She devoted her life to her faith at the age of 12. She started very young. At the age of 18, joined Sisters of Loretto in Ireland. Adopted the name St. Teresa after St. Teresa of Lisieux. She arrived in India and had to beg for food when she first arrived there. In 1950, she founded the Missionaries of Charity, received the Nobel Peace Prize in 1979, and the Missionary Charities today has over 4,500 sisters around the world. And she has an airport named after her in that place.
In Albania.
Albania.
Can I tell a couple of her stories?
Yeah, go ahead.
So in India, they have the caste system, which she disagrees with, but the lowest caste is abject poverty. And in the square in that area, that is where, in Calcutta, is where they threw all their trash. And of course, these poor people would go through the trash to find food. And one day the city got it up, you got the idea that, hey, we got to get rid of this trash. She was a little frail person. I don't even think she was 5 feet tall. Stood in front of the pile and said, "What are you going to do to replace his food?" Of course, they said nothing. But here they are with these big bulldozers to get rid of this pile, and they actually left. She received a state funeral from India, which is highly unusual since she was Catholic, not even Indian. Another story: when she had the calling to build the convent in India, was walking down the street in London, I believe it was. She had an empty purse. People would throw money in it. By the time she got to the monastery where she was at, there was enough money in that purse to build that monastery. Well, those are just two stories. Definitely a special person.
Definitely. St. Padre Pio. Okay, if you remember at the beginning of this, I said that's one of the guys I pray to. St. Pio of Pietrelcina. His feast day is September 23rd. He's the patron of civil defense volunteers, adolescents, the city he was born in, stress relief, and the January blues. I guess that's the winter blues, we would call them. Born in 1887 and died in 1968. This is one of those saints that his entire life he was saintly. Not like some of the other saints who came into, being good late in their life. Augustine, St. Augustine is one of those who, for the first 30 years of his life or something, he was a terrible person. But Padre Pio was a young boy, and he was very saintly. There's a story that there was a boy in the village was lost, and Padre Pio told his father, "Why are you so worried about looking for him? Just ask his guardian angel for help." Padre Pio regularly spoke to his guardian angel, and they were on, they
First name basis?
First name basis, I guess is the only way to say it.
He highly believed in praying to your guardian angel.
But also at the same time, as a young, from very young until very old, he was constantly physically attacked by Satan, usually in the form of a large dog. One night when he was praying in the chapel, in the choir loft of the church, they heard huge. He saw a demon. It's disguised like a dog, and he leapt toward him. The devil appearing as a disfigured man who hurled insults at him and blasphemies. And Padre Pio recounted that he spat on me and vanished after I called on the name of Jesus. They report that the devil would attempt to disturb his prayer by making horrific noises, shaking his head, and filling his room with a bad odor. And I think there's another story, but I'll go ahead and tell it. One time, late at night, they heard loud banging and a lot of noise coming from upstairs in his room. And they ran in and they saw him, and he was on the floor, had a pillow under his head. Whoops, wow. Let me get back to this guy. How we got back there. Yeah, Padre Pio. Yeah, this is the story of the cushion. Anyway, they came running in, and they had heard him fighting against someone, and turns out that there was a pillow under his head. And earlier that day, he had seen a possessed woman, and he chased her away, chased the demon, and she said, I'll be back and make you pay. And that night, he had to fight with the demon. And the next day, she said, she saw him, and she said, I got my vengeance from that miserable old man. Moreover, she kept shouting, that cushion that that an angel actually put under his head to keep him from smashing his head on the floor. This is a healing prayer attributed to Saint Padre Pio. Padre Pio had this stigmata. He had the wounds of Christ on his hands, in his side, and on his feet. He had got them. They started when he was 18, and they lasted until just before he died when he was 50, or they lasted 50 years, just before he died in 1968. The neat thing about it is they disappeared like a month or two before he died, but there were no scars. So he had, for 50 years, he had holes in his hands, holes in his feet. They bled, but they never got infected. They never festered. They just bled profusely, and they hurt quite a bit. But they disappeared and didn't leave a scar. So he was attributed with a lot of healing. That's okay. And he would give confessions. This is a neat story about a confession. A guy came in for confession, and when the guy was done, Padre Pio said, okay, are you done? Is there anything else? And the guy says, no, I think that's all of it. And Padre Pio says, you forgot something. And the guy's like, no, I don't think so. And he says, well, how about the time? And he told the guy about what, just reminded him of time. And the guy says, oh, yeah, you're right. I forgot about that. That's very important. And so he confessed that sin. And then Padre Pio says, is that all? And the guy says, I think so. Padre Pio says, you forgot something else. And the guy's really nervous at this point. He's like, I don't think so. What'd I forget? Look in your shirt pocket. And he had brought a rosary for Padre Pio to bless. So he did a bunch. He was great at reading souls in confession. St. Jude. St. Jude is October 28th. We just passed his feast day. He's the patron saint of desperate causes, desperate situations, and lost causes. And a lot of people know if you can't find something, or you have something that you gotta have in your hands, you can pray to St. Jude. And he's one of the 12 apostles. He's also called Thaddeus. His attribute is a club. I don't know why, but okay. He's the patron saint of impossible causes, like I said, mostly because he had the same name as Judas Iscariot, the bad guy. And people were kind of reluctant to pray for him or pray to him because they were afraid Judas Iscariot would, I don't know, steal his prayers, or they'd get them mixed up. So he had very few people actually pray to him. And so the only time people really decided, and it worked out, that if it was really desperate, you could pray to him, and he would listen because he was so anxious to be able to help people. His image almost always shows him carrying an image of Christ. It's called the image of Edessa. and he preached the gospel in Judea, Samaria, Idumea, Syria, Mesopotamia, and Libya. Idumea is south of Judea, in case you didn't know. St. Thomas Aquinas. January 28th is his feast day. He's the patron of students and universities. Born in 1226, died in 1274. He actually was born in and grew up in a castle. He had a lifelong fear of storms. He was nicknamed the Dumb Ox because he was quiet and big. He had terrible handwriting. He had to have scribes work for him. And he could dictate to 3 scribes at one time. They could talk faster than they could write. So he had 3 scribes, and he would dictate to all 3 at the same time. His family kidnapped him to stop him from joining the Dominican order, but they weren't successful.
Intervention.
He became a Dominican, and his writings are still used in church services today. So there's songs of the old Solitaris Hostiae and Pange Lingua. Okay. He was convinced at one time that all of his writings were straw. They were useless. And I think that somebody was trying to convince him that to burn it all. Yeah, there's another saint that did that. We'll talk about her in a little bit. And of course, he wrote the Summa Theologica.
I want it.
Yeah, a beautiful set of books. I got that thing. I think it was unfinished when he died. There you go. Thomas Aquinas, Summa Theologica. You see, it's a 5-volume set here.
Also, almost $500.
Okay, and I got an example of one of the questions. What he did was he took a question that he was asked or that was common, and then he wrote articles on what the question meant. And he answered each one with an objection and a reply to the objection. So question number 69, on matters concerning the resurrection and first of the place where souls go after death, in 7 articles. So the first article is whether places are appointed to receive souls after death. Is there a place to receive souls after death? And there's objection 1. It would seem that places are not appointed. Objection 2, objection 3. They were pointing out the objections specifically, and then he would reply to each of the objections. The second article, or whether souls are conveyed to heaven or hell immediately after death. And again, we have objection 1, we have the objections and the replies to the objections. The third article is whether the souls were in heaven or hell would be able to go from between the two. And of course, there was an objection. We know that they can't, but that was an objection back then. And again, with the reply to the objections. Fourth article, whether limbo or the limbo of hell is the same as Abraham's bosom. And the fifth article, sixth and seventh article. So he would systematically go through every objection and answer the objection to the benefit of the church, or not to the benefit of the person asking the question, in line with what the church taught. Saint Augustine of Hippo. You have some people pronounce this Saint Augustine, but I've always pronounced it Augustine. His feast day is August 28th. He's patron saint of brewers, printers, theologians, philosophers, and sore eyes. He was born on November 13th, 354, and died in 430. He was born in the Roman province of Numidia, modern-day Algeria, studied rhetoric in Carthage, Augustine became a Manichaean, which is a heresy in the 4th century, 5th century, I guess. Fourth, yeah, yeah, it was in the 4th century. He was baptized by Bishop Ambrose of Milan, one of the 4 original doctors of the church. Preached between 6,000 and 10,000 sermons in his lifetime. We have a recording of all of them, most of those. He had a child with a woman he never married. Like I said, he was not a good kid. Formulated the doctrine of original sin and wrote confessions. One of his most famous sayings is, "Lord, give me chastity and continence," but not quite yet. That's in his confessions. And his finger miraculously replaced an impostor's finger during a dispute. I don't understand, but that's what they have it recorded as happening. St. John Chrysostom. Chrysostom. Feast day is September 13th. Patron saint of preachers, public speakers, and lecturers. He was born in 344 and died on September 14th, 407. He was named Chrysostom, meaning golden mouth. He was very eloquent. He was born of Christian parents in the city of Antioch, which is now is in southern Turkey. His mother, at the age of 20, was a model of virtue. Studied rhetoric under a pagan, the most famous orator of that time. In 374, he began to lead the life of an anchorite in the mountains of Antioch. Author of the Divine Liturgy of St. Chrysostom. In 386, in a poor state of health, forced him to return to Antioch where he was ordained a priest, and he was banished to Pythias at the very extremity of the empire, but died on his way there. Pythias was actually in northeastern, what we call Turkey, or northeastern Turkey area, but he died on the way there. St. Catherine of Alexandria, another one of my favorite saints. This is an amazing story. November 25th is her feast day. She's the patriarch of students, unmarried girls, and apologists. Born in 287 and died in 305. She was born, got these slightly out of order. She was born in Alexandria. She was very rich. She was a very wealthy family, a very powerful family. She became a Christian, and she went to Maxentius to debate, or to tell him to stop harming Christians. And Maxentius summoned 50 orators and philosophers to argue with her, to debate with her, and she convinced all 50 of them that she was right. Many of them, some say all 50, converted to Christianity and were immediately executed because they did. Then Maxentius attempted to persuade Catherine to become his bride. Some stories say that he killed his wife, who she had also convinced to become a Christian. She had convinced Maxentius's wife to be Christian, and so Maxentius killed his wife. And then he said, "Well, you can be my wife now. I don't have a wife anymore." Kind of weird, but for some reason she declined. So then when she declined, the emperor said, put her on a breaking wheel. A breaking wheel was a big wheel that they would just systematically break all your bones one at a time. Very painful death, obviously. But the minute she touched the wheel, it shattered into pieces. Instead, they beheaded her, and it's said that the angels took her body to Mount Sinai immediately after her death. And she's also known, I didn't put this in here, she's also known as Catherine of Mount Sinai. And there's Emperor Julian ordered a monastery, the monastery at Mount Sinai, Catherine Mount Sinai Monastery. And it's the oldest one of the oldest monasteries in the world today. It was in the 6th century that he did that. St. Bernadette, I saw the movie. Did you see the movie?
Yes.
A few times.
Love the story.
Her feast day is April 16th. She's the patron of illnesses, people ridiculed for their piety, poverty, shepherds, shepherdesses, and the patron of lords in France. She was born in January 17th, 1844. She died April 16th, 1879. Let's see. On Thursday, February 11th, 1858, a 14-year-old, very beautiful lady appeared to her above in grotto at Massabielle. She was standing next to a rose bush. Massabielle was a trash dump. She spoke in a language called Occitan. It's a local language and was not very literate in French.
Wasn't literate in anything.
She wasn't very literate in anything. She was a very poor student. Okay.
Well, she had reason.
She had reason.
She had asthma.
Asthma. She had a very bad case of asthma, and again, the family was very poor. And so, when the lady told her, "I am the Immaculate Conception," they were all.
Didn't know what it meant.
She didn't know what it meant. And that the Immaculate Conception had just recently been announced as a dogma just before that, 2 years before that. And so, into the Pyrenees of France, getting that information over to France was not going to be that obvious. She wouldn't have known about it anyway, and she didn't. And even then, the people who spoke French, she didn't speak French, so she wouldn't have been able to understand it if they talked about it. She later joined the Sisters of Charity in Nevers, and her body was exhumed 30 years after her death and found to be incorrupt, and is still incorrupt.
So some of the really interesting stories about her. She was a very poor student because she was always she didn't go to school, and the nun who was the headmistress at her school didn't like her, thought that she just didn't care to study and such like that. When these apparitions started happening, everybody tried to get her to stop going, thinking she was lying, she was a fantasizing child. She ends up going into the convent because, having been through these apparitions, it was clear that she was not fit for this world, so she went into a convent, a cloistered convent. The nun who was charged with overseeing her formation in the convent was the same headmistress. And the headmistress never really, was very hard on her, never really bought into her story until tuberculosis hit. She was limping. They take her to her chamber, her cell, what they call cells in a monastery. And the nun comes in to talk to her, and she says, "Do you know how hard it's been? I've always believed that, you have to suffer." And she said, "Do you know what it's like to suffer?" She says, "No, sister, I'm sure I don't." "Well, wait a minute, there may be a way." And she lifted her robe, and the bottom part of her leg had been eaten through with the tuberculosis. So she obviously died soon after, but it was at that point that the headmistress turned convent nun fully converted and fully understood what it meant to suffer. So it's a really great story with that. She herself never felt that she deserved any more than what she received. She was very pious, very humble, and believed that everybody exaggerates their life to some extent, and that she was no different. Obviously, she is. And many miracles are attributed to her, by the way.
Okay, CW, what is decided? What is used to decide what a person is a patron saint for?
Usually something that they experienced in their life. For example, Carlos Acuda was just canonized in September by Pope Leo XIV. He is the patron saint of youth and of technology. The reason why is he was young. He was 12 when he died of leukemia, or 14, something like that. But he spent his time, while he was going through the leukemia, he spent his time putting together a website. I don't know if you've ever been to it. It's called Miracle Hunters, where he actually did two things. He made a log of all of the apparitions known that he could find. Great site, by the way. And two, he looked for all the Eucharistic miracles around the world. So the miracles attributed to the Holy Eucharist. The site is probably one of, even though it was crude because he built it in the early 2000s, it's probably one of the most visited sites for apparitional.
Yeah, and they also, just what they did, what they knew, what happened to them. Like Saint Francis, he loved animals, so he's a patron saint of
Saint Joseph, Christ's stepfather. He's the patron saint of the family. It is said that if you bury a statue facing the house, you'll find one. If you bury a statue facing away from the house, you'll be able to sell your home, because he is the patron saint of the family, and a lot of people still follow these traditions.
And I don't know what's ADNAW. No, we don't worship saints.
We don't. Who said we worship saints? We venerate. That is a common fallacy among non-Catholics, that we worship. We do not. We ask them for intercessory prayers. It's no different than me asking you for prayers. We ask them for prayers. The church recognizes people who died in the state of grace, and we are given these stories about these saints so that when we are in, our state of prayer, we can reflect on their life and kind of work towards emulating their life, so that if you want to know how to get to heaven, if you understand and follow these saints, what they did, the lives they led, they're guides for us. That's all it is a guide. We're not worshiping. Worshiping means you're asking them to answer your prayers. Veneration means you're asking them to say prayers on your behalf. There's a very big difference. We worship God and only God, and we venerate many who've gone before us that have led a life that's worthy of emulating. So I really hope, it is one of my dreams actually, that we could get to a point where we can lay down these old misnomers and actually start having a good conversation, because these people are worth looking into. Their lives are a study in and of themselves. And I know myself, when I'm in various situations, sitting there, praying to God, and then I'll say, whatever saint fits that situation, please pray for me. I don't understand why so many people have trouble with me asking somebody for prayers. I just don't get it.
Okay, and that's the purpose of these slides. Saint Faustina Olvotska. She was born, or feast day is October 5th. She's a patron saint of mercy. And her birth name was Helena, and she had no intentions of entering religious life. And she saw visions of the suffering Christ and was tasked with spreading devotion to Jesus' divine mercy. She was shown a vision of hell, noting that most souls had not believed in its existence. Saw purgatory, where the Virgin Mary comforted souls. She burned one of her first. She was burned her first notebook. She was keeping a diary, and she burned it because she was convinced that by the devil that she needed to get rid of it.
Actually, she was told,
Yeah.
right? It was told in her view, in her prayer time, she had received information that these diaries were useless and she needed to burn them, so she did. And when the Pope, not the Pope, when the bishop found out about it, he was very upset. He says, you need to write down everything. So if you look at Sister Faustina's diaries, which you can purchase the books, you will notice that they're not in chronological order, because she would write down what she was receiving, and as she remembered things, she'd write them down to the best of her ability to put the right date. But they're not in chronological order because they're rewritten from after the Satan told her to burn them. I know of two. I'm sure there's others, but I know of two saints who went through that. One of them didn't burn his diaries, right? Padre Pio.
Padre Pio, right.
And she did, but she was just a young girl, so I can understand.
Okay, she had the gifts of hidden stigmata. She had the pains, but none of the physical physical signs. But she had all the pains from the stigmata. At the age of 20, she joined the Congregation of Sisters of Our Lady of Mercy, and she was instructed by Jesus to record his vision and spiritual experiences in a diary, which became the Divine Mercy in my soul. And of course, she did the picture of the Divine Mercy.
The one that we always see.
Yeah.
I should have put that up there.
I should have. Saint Gemma Galgani. Feast day is April the 11th. Students, pharmacists, against temptation, against the death of parents, and against tuberculosis. She was born in 1878 and died in 1903 on Holy Saturday. And you notice we're getting up to the 20th century now. Also known as the Flower of Lucca, responsible for raising her younger siblings when her parents died. Miraculously, she was healed from spinal meningitis. She's an Italian mystic, had the gift of levitation and visions of guardian angels and Blessed Mother Mary. So she could, levitation is just that, being raised up off the grain of the ground.
There's been many cases of levitation among the saints, and those that were experiencing them being levitated could not hold them. They were too heavy. They couldn't push them down. They couldn't move them. They were just levitated in air, and it was like they were cement. You know, they were too heavy to do anything with. So it was obviously something divine. It was obviously not organic in this world.
Let's see. She's referred to as the daughter of passion because of her intense replication of the passion of Christ. She received the stigmata of the veil of the Sacred Heart of Jesus in 1899. Well, she received the stigmata on the veil. Okay, unable to become a passionist nun because of her fragile health.
Yeah, she was always very ill. She died of tuberculosis, again, a very common ailment.
Saint Charbel. Charbel. July 24th, patron saint of Lebanon. He was born on May 8th, 1828. Died December 24th in 1898. Born Yosef Antoine Maklouf in the village of Bakhta, Lebanon. Became a monk at 23, priest at 31, and a hermit at 46. One of the most beloved saints of the Marianite Catholic Church. Powerful witness to the mysteries of divine grace through silence, sacrifice, and prayer. Always kept his head down in prayer while walking. People didn't know what he looked like because he was always looking down with the hood over his face. After his death on Christmas Eve in 1898, a bright light reportedly emanated from his tomb. Thousands of miracles had been attributed to his intercession. Nahad al-Shami reported that Saint Charbel performed surgery on her in a dream, leaving 2 fresh wounds that have since become a sign of his healing powers.
What's really interesting about this particular saint, many people who have impossible health conditions, who have prayed a devotion, seeking intercessory prayer, they have frequently talked about having marks of, as if a doctor had been working with them or on them. It's another saint. It's an interesting read on his life. Very humble too. Saint Ambrose. Ooh. Beekeepers.
Beekeepers, yeah.
I pray to him every time I go outside in the summer.
Beggars, learners, Milan, the patron of Milan. Born in 340, died in 397. Born in Trier, Trevers, in modern-day Germany. What?
Go ahead.
Was appointed Bishop of Milan, and though he was not baptized. He was appointed bishop, but he wasn't even baptized Catholic at the time. One of the 4 original doctors of the church, obviously very knowledgeable, known as the honey-tongued doctor for his powerful oratory skills. And that's because of that, he's called the patron saint of beekeepers. He excommunicated the emperor Theodosius I. He influenced the conversion of Augustine, St. Augustine. He had a big impact on St. Augustine. And after his appointment as bishop, he gave away all his possessions to the poor. St. Anthony of Padua, June 13th. He's the patron saint of lost things. Born Ferdinand Martins de Bulhaus in Lisbon, Portugal. Joined the Augustinian order at the age of 15, very young. Joined the new Franciscan order in 1220, inspired by the martyrdom of 5 Franciscan friars in Morocco, and took the name Anthony. First teacher of the Franciscan order. He was the first Franciscan to actually be a teacher, be called a teacher. What?
As a Franciscan.
As a Franciscan, right. He earned the nickname the Hammer of Heretics. It's constantly beating up on heretics. Pope Leo XIII, there he is again, gave him the title of the Saint of the World. Yeah, around the world, people love him. And he's declared a Doctor of the Church by Pope Leo XIII in 1946. Pope Pius XII, I'm sorry, I was thinking Pius XII in 19.
He chastised snowmen, make sure to keep himself pure. That's an interesting story.
Saint Francis of Assisi. There's another very much loved saint. His feast day is October 4th. He's the patron saint of animals, merchants, and ecology. Go figure. He was born in 1181 and died in October 3rd of 1226. He was baptized John or Giovanni after St. John the Baptist. His father renamed him De Pietro de Bartoni because France was where he made his livelihood. Pietro, okay. Before his conversion, he lived a carefree life and had dreams of becoming a knight. So this is Francis of Assisi, one of those other people who later on became a saint, but wasn't one as a child or a young adult. His partying buddies called him Dominus because he was the king of partying. He was imprisoned for nearly a year during the war, and that imprisonment changed his life. That's when he became religious. He was a wealthy young man who renounced all his possessions to a life of poverty. He traveled to Egypt to convert the Sultan and challenged his Islamic religious leaders to trial by fire. He said, okay, we'll start a fire and we'll both walk through it and see who makes it through alive.
He did, hint.
No, he didn't. The Sultan refused to kill his religious leaders.
He didn't.
Oh, he didn't. Yeah. First, he's the first recorded person to receive the stigmata. He created the first living nativity scene. He also founded the Poor Clares and the lay Third Order and of Franciscans. He taught St. Anthony of Padua to be a Franciscan. After he died, his body was placed in the basilica, but out of fear that it would be lost to raids by invading Saracens, was hidden and was not rediscovered until 1818, almost 600 years later. Saint Joan of Arc, May 30th. He's a patron saint of soldiers and of France. Born in 1412, died in 1431. Look at that date. Think about it. Never participated in any active combat, though she was wounded at least twice. Led French forces to a pivotal victory at the Siege of Orleans when she was 17 years old. She was illiterate, by the way. At the age of 13, began having visions of saints and angels that she believed instructed her to support Charles VIII. Okay, Charles VII. Didn't think there was a Charles. Anyway, she was called the Maid of Orleans and wore male attire. She was captured by Burgundian soldiers and sold to the English. She was tried for heresy, and the heresy was she was wearing men's clothing. Does that sound familiar? She was burned at the stake in Rome in 1431 at the age of 19. Declared innocent of all charges a couple of years later, 2 decades after her death. 20 years later, after her death, they said, "Oh, sorry, we shouldn't have killed her."
Her greatest claim, and part of the reason why she wore men's clothing, is she would go to the armies and tell them what forces they needed to put together. She was kind of like she never went into combat, but she guided troops through combat. And there's many miracles associated with her, which is why she's the patron saint of soldiers.
Saint Irenaeus of Lyon. June 28th is his feast day, born in about 125, born about 125 and died in 202. Born in Asia Minor, the second bishop of Lyons, which is modern-day France, fought against the heresies, defended the four gospels, and is sometimes called the father of Mariology. Influenced by his teacher, Saint Polycarp, and who was taught by the Apostle John. So he knew somebody who was taught by John. He was taught by somebody who taught by John. He wrote Against Heresies, which is a fantastic book, a major effort to combat Gnosticism. Established that Matthew, Mark, and Luke and John were 4 canonical gospels. Oh, by the way, in the Against Heresies, he explains the Catholic Mass very well at the time. It's very important how the Catholic Mass had the actual body of Christ. He was the first to draw a theological comparison between Eve and Mary, and is a crucially important source for establishing the existence or belief in the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist. Then I thought I should look at this. Saints who were converted from Islam. There were 9 converts who became saints. 7 of those were martyred. I found a total of 178 Muslims that were converted to Christianity, but only 9 of those became saints. These are high-profile Muslims. I'm sure there are a lot more, obviously. And 8 of those are identified as dying for their faith, but I think it was closer to 7. Yeah, if you look on my bulleted list, the one with the 4 dots is people who were died as martyrs, And then down at the bottom of is Calida of Toledo and Josephine Bakhita. I've got slides on both of those, I believe. But these are people who were Muslim and converted. Saint Albo of Tiflis is one who converted. He's an 8th century performer in Baghdad. He was born in Baghdad, of pure Arab stock and raised Muslim. At about 17, he followed a Georgian prince Nushers, who was being released from captivity by the Caliph to Georgia. So this guy he was a Christian, but he was being released to Georgia, and he followed him. Abo converted to Christianity after much soul searching, and was secretly baptized in Khazaria while accompanying nurses. He initially practiced his faith in secret for obvious reasons, but he eventually returned to Tbilisi and openly declared his Christian faith. After 3 years of preaching, he was arrested, imprisoned for his faith, and after his death, a shining star shone over his burial site, and a pillar of light emitted from the Mitsuri River where his remains were thrown. Saint Abram of Bulgaria. He was a merchant and born to Muslim parents in Volga, Bulgaria, became a successful merchant. Known for his kindness to the poor, he later converted to Christianity. After converting, he began to preach to the fellow countrymen in Bulgaria, the capital of Volga, Bulgaria. He was seized, tortured, and ultimately executed by his own people on April 1st, 1229. His death involved being quartered and then beheaded. His relics were removed in the Christian cemetery of Volga. Buried his body in the Christian cemetery. On March 6, 1230, his relics were transferred to the Dormition Cathedral in Kanayginin Monastery in Vladimir by Prince George Visovich.
You don't have to.
Usually I try to past them, but that one caught me. His memory began to be celebrated immediately at that time. He was also known as Vladimir the Wonder Worker due to the relevance and veneration of his relics received in Vladimir. Saint Casilda of Toledo. She was the daughter of a Muslim king in Toledo, Spain. While she was still a Muslim, she was known for her kindness to Christian prisoners, whom she secretly shipped or supplied food hidden in her clothes. Once a guard stopped her and asked her what she was carrying, and the bread that she was carrying turned into a bouquet of roses, allowing her to pass without punishment. She fell ill and went to Muslim doctors, and they couldn't cure her. She traveled to the shrine of Saint Vicente in northern Spain, and it was known for its healing there, and she was healed. She was cured and immediately converted to Christianity, was baptized in Burgess, and dedicated her life to penance and solitude. She lived near the miraculous spring until her death, likely around the age of 100. What?
Dr.
Yeah, we're almost done. Saint Josephine Bakhita. She was kidnapped and sold into slavery. That name was given to her by her captors, which means fortunate. She had 144 physical scars, but could not remember her original name. She escaped slavery and joined the Canassian Sisters. She was canonized in 2000. Her story is a testament to overcoming suffering with her smile and gentleness admiring many. And her final moments, she's reported as called out, Our Lady, before her death in 1947. And then there's three saints who weren't, or three people called saints, a group of saints, 12 living martyrs, Saint Sephirin of Savoy, Saint Gregory of Narek. These are three groups, or a group of saints that they weren't Catholic, but the Catholic recognizes them as saints. And then we have saints who did strange, funny things. I'm not going to do all of these, but one of my favorite is Saint Lawrence, third one on the list. A Roman sentenced him to death, slow, painful death, being roasted over a large iron grill with hot coals. While he was being cooked, he said, okay, I'm done on that side. You need to turn me over. And we got a couple other funny things, not much. But since all the saints had a great sense of humor. And that's it.
So, you got your
Oh, I'm saying I can stop moving up there. Why couldn't I get it down here?
So that is what we have for All Saints Day. I do hope you guys have a very blessed All Saints Day, and I hope this helps for some of you that aren't Catholic or don't fully understand the veneration of saints. I hope this gave you a sense of why we Catholics do some of these strangest things. We are not a cult. There is actually a reason for the madness. Close out the slideshow.
Close out the slideshow.
Right there, up at the top, click X.
Oh, just exit it.
Yes. Now bring your OBS over to the center.
Okay.
He didn't want you to hear me helping him how to use OBS. So anybody have any comments or questions? I need to scroll down so I can see if there are any, because now's the time to ask them. Okay, so just wanted to come and say hi, Feisty. I will have to re-listen as I didn't get notification. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I hope you do enjoy it. Please let me know. And of course, everybody, if you enjoyed this, give it a thumbs up, share it out, help people see it. I would surely love to make this channel a little more than what it is. And of course, you could always support our work. And I do appreciate those diehards that did jump in, even though you didn't know it was coming. Just so you know, I owe you a show. I was not feeling well on Wednesday, so I did not do my Wednesday show for whatever reason. We don't know why. I had laryngitis. Took a couple days to do a lot of sleeping, and hell, I got my voice back, but I missed a show. So I'm going to try to do 2 shows this week. Finish up as much as I can on the Vatican deck, and then we'll move on to do other things after that. But I got probably 2 more shows on the Vatican deck. So
you're very
what is a
welcome.
doctor of a church? That's a great
doctor?
question.
Okay, go ahead.
Doctor of the church is somebody who knows about the ins and outs of being a Christian. They are scholarly in their teachings and their writings, helping people understand the whole idea of Christianity, in particular, obviously Catholicism later on. But they're usually the people that we could look to that have written extensively and help us to understand the path of faith.
Some of the doctors are not necessarily trained in universities.
Right. Saint Teresa.
Saint Teresa, yeah.
Doctor of the church. Her simplicity and her understanding of Christ as, quote, a little child made her a doctor of the church. Her writings, her diary that she wrote, before she died, her diary has been an inspiration for millions, because of what she wrote and how she wrote. She just simply talked about how her faith was developed. She's the famous saint that said, somebody said, how do you know God hears you? And she said, you just reach up. Oops, use my other arm. You just Here we go. You just reach out your hand and know that God grabs it. And I have to tell you, for me, because she is my patron saint, for me that has helped a lot, knowing, sometimes we just don't know for sure if we've captured the ear of our Holy Father, right? We don't know if God hears us. There's no real interaction. We don't hear the Holy Spirit talking. And her comment was, in very simple terms, just know he hears us.
Yes, a doctor is a teacher, but not all teachers were doctors.
Not all teachers, right? Nor were they classically trained. For example, John.
Who?
John. The apostle.
The apostles. Well, most of the apostles were not trained. They were all common
Yeah,
men.
they were well, he wasn't. He was actually wealthy.
With the exception of Paul. Paul was classically trained, but
I mentioned John. The reason why he was named doctor of the church was because he actually converted. He transcribed the scrolls into Greek. So he knew very closely what those, the teachings were.
well, let's see. Adna, anyway, said thank you. You're very welcome, sir. Guess it's a sir. You're very welcome either way.
Yes, John Henry. We talked about that in the beginning of the presentation about Revelations 5 and 8. And there's a couple of other verses that you can look at. That's on the very first slide, I think, or
third slide, I think. Yeah. Or no, it was the very first slide we talked about that. Yeah.
Yeah, we as Catholics do follow the Bible, and what we do is biblically presented. So with that, everybody, thank you so much. I'm going to play this great song again that Song Babe wrote. Mr. Leota did the video for. Close out the camera.
Close out the camera.
Have a blessed day, and we'll see you next time.
And now we got to do the outro.
Little girl woke from a dream, an angel by her side took her hand. She showed no fear, and through his tears he said, when will the people see all they were meant to be? Why do the children cry? No one to dry their eyes. Take a message to the world. Take a message to the world. We are one. We are one. We are one. message to the world. We are one, we are